There have been books written about Jim Henson's work and Jim Henson's Muppet creations. Now there is a comprehensive biography about Jim Henson himself. NMIF correspondent Larry Aarons has a conversation with UNM alumnus Brian J. Jones, author of Jim Henson, the biography. Henson created Muppets long before they became stars of Sesame Street and The Muppet Show, and Jones gives us insight into the creation of such characters as Big Bird, Kermit, and Miss Piggy.
Well, it's a real treat for me to welcome to this interview a gentleman who wrote a biography about a guy that we all probably feel like we know. Jim Henson, the biography written by Brian J. Jones, who is with us today. Brian, great to meet you.
Great to meet you. I'm so glad to be here. Big fan from way back.
We'll talk about your New Mexico roots here in just a moment. Jim Henson, a complex, creative, energetic, and eternally optimistic guy. And you got to delve into his life in a way that nobody has yet. This is the first biography about him.
Yeah, there's been plenty written about his work over, he died 23 years ago, which is unbelievably hard math to do at this point. It's hard to believe he's been gone that long. But there's been plenty written about his work, and there's books focusing on things he's written even. There's a book on designs and doodles, but there's never been a comprehensive biography for adults. There's been a couple of ones for kids, but this is the first one for grown-ups.
Once you dig into his life, the thing that you come away with is, of course, we're going to talk about Sesame Street.
Sure.
And he was world famous for his work on Sesame Street, and for many people that would have been enough.
Yeah.
For Jim Henson, he became famous outside of Sesame Street.
Yeah, and for Jim, Sesame Street, when it first started, was just a job for him. It shows up in his private notes. He mentions the pilot, and then it doesn't show up again for 3 or 4 years because it was just one of the thousands of things he was doing, one of the many balls in the air. Yeah. You know, he could have been famous for only The Muppet Show had he wanted to. As well, but decided after 5 years that was enough of that, went on to make movies. So, you know, at every point in his life, he's ready to go on to the next thing.
Well, this is PBS. Let's start with Sesame Street.
Sure.
And his devotion to that show was unparalleled.
Yeah, it was absolutely critical to him that TV matter. He was a big fan of TV from early on. That was what he wanted to do with his life, was get into TV no matter what. It happened to be he got in through being a puppeteer. But he wanted TV to matter. He really wanted TV to be relevant. So he loved the fact that Sesame Street had that educational component to it. That was really important to him.
I fully give credit to Sesame Street for teaching my children how to read and do the alphabet when they were small. And I remember we all remember sitting, kids or ourselves, in front of the TV set to learn and watch and be entertained.
Yeah, and Jim talked about how, and he did Ernie and Frank Oz did Bert, and they both talked about how a lot of times the material they were given to be educational was kind of dry. So they knew what the educational component was they had to hit. They had to talk about sharing, or, you know, where the nose went on the face. And so he said they would just talk around the rest of it, and they would kind of ad-lib a lot of it. So somehow sneezing your nose off into a handkerchief became educational in the hands of Jim Henson and Frank Oz doing Ernie and Bert.
Now, when did Sesame Street actually start?
Sesame Street premiered in November of 1969. So it's been, I can't even do the math, 45 years now.
I would have never guessed it was around that long. I remember it from the 70s.
Yeah.
And it seemed like the show got better as it went along. Like all good shows, they start to gel and the characters really come to life.
Yeah, I mean, one of the great things about Jim as a creator and as a co-worker even is Jim always liked to give the performers the room they needed to find their characters. And even with something like Ernie and Bert, you see the early pictures of after Jim had built Ernie and Bert, he knew that he wanted the characters for Sesame. He knew he wanted somebody that was all horizontal and somebody that was all vertical. That was very funny to him. But you see the first pictures, he and Frank Oz are in front of a mirror, and Jim's got on Bert. And Jim ended up doing Ernie, but Frank Oz had on Bert, and they played around with him in front of a mirror. It was very important to figure out what fit. And as people said later, it made perfect sense for Jim to be doing Ernie and Frank to be doing Bert, because Frank was Bert. He was this very buttoned up, sort of uptight guy, and Jim was very laid back and knew how to poke at Frank Oz and push his buttons, which is what Ernie does to Bert. Somebody said it was the perfect marriage in the perfect sense of the word.
I got to mention that you are from Albuquerque.
Yeah, I grew up here. I went to El Dorado High School and the University of New Mexico.
Oh, you're a Lobo.
Absolutely.
And you wrote for the Daily Lobo, too, right?
I did. I was primarily the night editor, which was more the layout function. This was back in the days of bearskins and buck knives, when we had to actually print it out in the back room and then develop it and then cut it out with X-Acto knives and wax it down to the surface, and all that stuff you can actually do in a computer now, we had to do by hand.
Now, you consider yourself a biographer by any stretch of the imagination. Mm-hmm. That's what you do as a writer.
Right.
Yeah, that's your specialty. I loved biographies when I was a kid growing up? Because you learned so much about them. Were you the same way?
Yeah, and one great thing about biography is it's the only section of the library that's organized alphabetically. So when you were a kid, it was really easy. You could run past all the numbers, and you didn't have to look stuff up in the card catalog. You just go to the wall where all the biographies were and just start reading the names in alphabetical order. And I loved going through that. I remember I always wanted to read about Johnny Bench when I was a kid. I loved reading about baseball, and I would always go straight to that wall.
So Jim Henson, Sesame Street, obviously huge, but his creative drive kept him engaged in that project, but he went on beyond that. And let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, at the time of Sesame Street, 1969, Jim was also still at that point, still trying to sort of break out of being just a puppeteer, and especially he didn't want to be just known as a children's puppeteer. But he knew that the Muppets could work on TV, and he'd done enough variety shows throughout the 60s. He was on Jack Paar and Steve Allen and Ed Sullivan and did sort of all the big shows in the 60s, and he really knew the Muppets could hold their own for half an hour. He was convinced this would work. So in the early 70s, he actually got the attention of Michael Eisner, who was at ABC at the time, who greenlit a Muppet Show pilot. And so Jim created his first Muppet Show pilot in 1974, I think, and it doesn't really catch hold. It was called the Muppet Valentine Special. Kermit's not the host of it. It's set in sort of a weird conservatory. You don't really know where this is occurring. Mia Farrow was the guest star. Doesn't really do anything. You know, people think it's nice, doesn't really do anything. So he does another one a year later, calls it Muppet Show Sex and Violence. He loved that joke because that was the antithesis of being a kid's entertainer. Kermit's not at the center of that one either. It's hosted by a guy named Wally in a control room of a TV studio, it looks like. That doesn't do anything either. But Jim knows this is going to work. He ends up doing this very crazy pitch reel for executives at CBS, calling executives out by name, which is hilarious. The executives watched it, said, "This thing's the greatest tape I've ever seen." It still didn't do anything for him. It wasn't finally until Lord Grade over in London said, "I will give you what the resources you need to do this. You just have to do it at my studio in London." And Jim picked up and left and went to London and did the Muppet Show in London for 5 years. But that's a real study in stick-to-itiveness. He knew that was going to work.
It took, what, about 10 years?
About 10 years. It's in his notebooks even. There's proposals for it in the late 60s.
And we chatted before the show today. You said Jim was a guy that was always pitching the next idea.
Yeah.
He was just a fountain of ideas.
Yeah, you look at him in the 60s especially, before you know, the end of that sentence there of the 60s is Sesame Street. We all know that's sort of coming along. Jim doesn't know that. So in the 60s, he's pitching constantly, you know, interesting ideas that never get off the page. He had something called Johnny Carson and the Muppet Machine, where he was proposing to put Johnny Carson in this Muppet, you know, world, and he'd be kind of spit out at the end of it. Never got further than the proposal, although he illustrated it. He did hippie documentaries. He did something called Youth 68. It was a documentary, right, you know, of the hippie generation. He did something called The Cube. It's like a avant-garde Twilight Zone episode. He wanted to open a nightclub and talked about having an inflatable building that he'd put into a vacant lot in New York, and women would be lowered down from the ceiling and they project movies on them in time with the music. You know, just creatively restless. Thousands of ideas, a lot which never got further than the page.
Did he empower his people that worked for him and with him to honor that creativity? Did they have carte blanche to go out and kind of create what they wanted to?
Yeah, I mean, Jim was sort of Jim was sort of the ultimate collaborator in that sense. Really gave people the room to find their characters. You know, took somebody like Dave Goelz, who was a puppet designer, wanted to be a performer, but had a hard time finding his characters. It gave him Gonzo on the Muppet Show, and really gave him the time to find that character and not be such a shy performer and make it big and react big. Dave Goelz would always talk about how when he started to perform, all the technicians in the TV studio would put up the newspapers because they were, you know, saying nothing exciting was going to happen. He said the first time he yelled out the word no and made it big, all the newspapers came down. He said finally he found that character, but Jim had given him the leeway to do that. Something like Miss Piggy, that was sort of a back row character for a long time. Yeah. She was passed back and forth between two puppeteers for a while. Frank Oz had her finally one day, and there was a stage direction that called for Miss Piggy to slap Kermit the Frog. And Frank Oz decided that was going to be a karate chop instead. So I had Miss Piggy give Kermit a karate chop, and head writer Jerry Joel said, the place went crazy, you knew that was it. They knew they'd found that character. And Bonnie Erickson, who built that puppet, later described her as a truck driver who thinks she's a fashion model, which I think sums it up very nicely.
Great analogy.
Yeah.
I can't remember, because the Muppets, there's so many characters. Did Muppet characters from Sesame Street migrate to the Muppet Show and back?
Not usually.
Did they keep them separate?
Yeah, in the first season of The Muppet Show, Jim put Ernie and Bert on as guest stars, I think in the second or third episode. And I think partly that was to help orient people, because The Muppet Show, when it first came on, and I remember watching it when I was 9, none of the Muppets were familiar to us. No, we didn't know about Miss Piggy or Fozzie Bear or Gonzo. I think partly he put Ernie and Bert on there, so if you were tuning in, you went, okay, this is familiar. I'm at least, as I said at one point in the book, you knew you were looking in the windows of the right house at that point, because there were Ernie and Bert. But he sort of tried to keep them separately. Kermit was really the only crossover character between Sesame Street.
If you really look at it, though, Kermit is Jim, and Jim is Kermit.
Yeah.
You know, in a crazy way. Because Kermit's the only normal guy around, and all the craziness swirls around him.
Although, as Kermit says at one point, what do you mean? I'm the one that hired all these guys. So,
yeah,
you know.
That's a funny line.
But Jim, you know, Jim was like Kermit. He was the calm in the middle of the storm.
Right. He had all this craziness happening around him.
Yeah, yeah.
In a creative fervor, and he was the guy that just sorted it all out. And made
Yeah,
it work.
and you know, nothing on the Muppet Show works without Kermit there. You know, Kermit's the straight man. He's the stage manager. He's the organizer, and that's Jim. He's, you know, it's crazy around him. He's got to stay calm, because if he doesn't, no one's going to run the show. And that was Jim.
Besides Kermit, Big Bird is the other iconic character. Do we know any story behind that character and how that came to be?
Yeah, when they first started doing the early test shows for Sesame Street, a lot of the academics had told them, you can't have Muppet characters. You can't have puppets on the street. The street has to be real people, and then the Muppets have to be in their own segment, isolated from everything else. You can't have that crossover, they were told, because that's confusing reality with fantasy. Well, what they found out is when they ran those test shows, as soon as they went away from the Muppets, the kids' attention spans went down. So they said, well, you know, the way you fix this is you've got to put Muppets on the street. So Jim said, well, Big Bird will be the representative of the kid. And so Big Bird's supposed to be the 4-year-old. He's the child's point of view. So he put Big Bird on the street.
I see.
The other character was Oscar the Grouch. Put him on the street as well. And Oscar in that first season is sort of this grungy, metallic orange. He doesn't look a lot like Oscar, although the personality's there. But those Muppets were put on the street to sort of keep the kids' attention span up. But Big Bird in the early seasons, his eyes are a little dopey. He has less plumage on his head. They sort of fixed that character. Again, it was another time Jim gave people the time to sort of find the character. Carol Spinney, the performer who still does it to this day, sort of decided he wasn't a country bumpkin. He was a 4-year-old. He was going to have that 4-year-old's interest in the world, and that's when he found that character.
Talk a little bit about Jim Henson's connection to New Mexico.
Yeah, this was all news to me. Jim's parents, when his father was an agronomist with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and retired here in the early 70s, and they lived out here for about 10 years before they ended up moving to North Carolina. And Jim was in the city a lot, visiting them, which I didn't know. It turns out he lives up, I think it was Donna Rowena, up in the Northeast Heights, about a half a mile from where I grew up, and played Little League baseball at Roadrunner, you know, Little League. So that was all news to me, and it was one of those moments. I had a digital tape of Jim interviewing his parents, and at the end of that tape, it's one of those sort of spooky moments for a biographer where he always would say where he was. And he says, we're here in Albuquerque, we're on Donna Rowena, and I went, whoa, what? Where? I know exactly where that is. I had no idea. And at one point, Lisa Henson, who's 12, says to him, why are you saying that? No, why would you put that on the tape? And Jim says, and this is the moment that gives you, you know, that one of those wonderful chills as a biographer, says, well, someday someone may care that we were here and want to know what we were doing. Which is exactly what I was doing. It was a great moment. But Jim knew, you know, that things mattered, and he would save those things.
Jim Henson, as you point out in the book, was a man of crazy optimism.
Yes.
I mean, it was limitless. And where did that come from? You talk about the fact that his brother died at a very young age, and that had an impact in what way?
Yeah, his brother was in the Navy and was in a car accident when he was in his early 20s and died. And a lot of people said that they thought that sort of put rocket fuel in Jim's blood. His daughter Lisa said that. You know, Frank Oz said that he thought that in Jim's head, he thought, well, now I have to live for both of us, myself and my brother. And so there's a lot of things. It made him realize there's a lot of things he still wanted to do, and there may not always be enough time. It wasn't one of those sort of prophecies for him, I don't think, but I think Jim did have an appreciation, you know, that time matters. You can't waste time. And I think it's interesting, one of the first films he made was called Timepiece, about a man sort of racing against the clock. This movie's got a clock ticking throughout it constantly.
Yes.
And a man running through cemeteries and jumping off diving boards and trying to get everything into a day that you would do. So, and another one of the first songs he recorded that he wrote himself was called Tick Tock Sick, all about don't let the clock define the limits of your life. I mean, very, you know, a fascination with time very early on.
But I love the optimistic part of him, that side of him.
Yeah.
He was always hopeful that the next thing would happen, and a lot of it did for him.
Yeah, and he was, you know, he knew he was going to make it. And a driver once said, "Did you ever, you know, dream in your wildest dreams that you would be famous?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I just didn't think it was going to take this long." And, you know, he actually was successful starting at age 17. He was on TV at 17 already, had his own show by 18. So he was already, you know, successful, but he, you know, he really sort of had this feeling that he was going to make it. But again, his work really had to matter to him. You know, Jim really did want to make a difference. You know, he once said, I hope that the world's better for my having been here. And that really mattered to him. TV had to matter, projects had to matter.
I don't want to give away the ending, but the last chapter, especially meaningful to those of us in New Mexico, and it's a must read.
Yeah.
It really is a tender, tender ending to a beautiful book. And it's wonderful to meet you.
Oh, I'm so glad
and to get to talk about this man that I feel is still alive today.
Yeah.
And I think you feel that too.
Yeah, and still miss him today. Like
Yeah.
I said, it's one of those things when I said to Frank Oz, it's been 23 years, and he said, "Wow, really?" You know, it's still fresh, I think, for a lot of people.
It's Jim Henson, the biography, and Brian J. Jones from Albuquerque wrote it, and it's great to meet you and chat about this.
No, thanks for having me here. This has been
Thank
great.
you.